Hello, well, thank you for joining us. My name is David Vaughn Straughn. We're coming at you live from Charlottesville, Virginia at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. With me is Justin Emeka and Dr. Tawnya Pettiford-Wates. They are both accomplished actors, directors, magnates of the theater in their own rights. I am humbled to be a moderator of this discussion. I've been called to talk about August Wilson, primarily his themes about social justice, reform, and revolution. And I just open the floor to what those themes mean to you in the theatrical space and how you believe that Wilson finds them.
Well, I don't. I guess which one? There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's so many themes, right?
Right. Which one? Because I want to lump them all together.
No.
I want to talk about.
Well, I mean, pick one. I have a list of so many, but I just an overlying theme of that.
I think that the mark that August Wilson, the impact that August Wilson and his work, the century cycle, that canon, the contribution and the challenge to the structure of the American theater, I think that's revolutionary in and of itself. He was a revolutionary artist.
Yes, and I do have that as a note, the overlying meta theme of the revolution, right? I can't think of, in my, small infant nature of theatrical knowledge, I can't think of another playwright before August Wilson. It's just like what he created in terms of like black playwriting and creating opportunities for other black playwrights to be seen, to be highlighted. Do we have a Dominique Morisseau? Do we have a Terrell Alvin McRaney? If not for August Wilson? Are those avenues opened if not his work was so amazing and revered by people outside of the scope of who he was trying to impress?
He also had, a James Baldwin. He also had a Lorraine Hansberry.
Yes.
Mary Baraka. He was born out of a tradition.
That's right.
Of playwrights, some who are known and some who aren't. Ted Ward, Theodore Ward. There's a whole lot of folks.
Turner.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's the Coltrane, right? He's the guy that kind of, when you think about all of these historical figures in black playwriting, like he's kind of like on the Mount Rushmore, you can say, so to speak, of that. Not to say that he's leaps and beyond that skill, right. But in terms of like who you know, right?
Oh, for sure. Coltrane is a good kind of example there. It's really talk about. But I guess getting back to your original idea of like what social justice, revolution. I think at one level, the beauty about August Wilson is that he doesn't really try to offer definitions or clear like this is what it looks like.
Right.
Like most great historians or prophets or storytellers speak in metaphors and parables. And so much of his work, that's what it is. It's a metaphor, and the century cycle is kind of a meditation on what is social justice, what is revolution, what does it look like. In so many of his plays, that's what his characters are often wrestling with. What is revolution? You know what I'm saying? What is social justice? What does it look like? I think kind of one of the overall themes, though, about that, I think August Wilson offers us in terms of revolution, social justice, is the idea of going back. It's a Sankofa idea of looking back to move forward, you know, and then we can't move forward until we first understand where we've come from, which is why he didn't start with writing a play. It took him a long time to write a play about today.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? He would go back. He would like, let me see what's going on in the 20s. Let me see what's going on in the 10s. Let's see what's going on in the 40s to get me to where I am today. You know, so just that idea of you've got to go back. I mean, to go forward is like two trains running. On S that says, you know, you got to go back and pick up the ball. Because if you get to the end zone, it ain't gonna be a touchdown without the ball. So you got to go back and pick it up.
You speak about looking back in order to go forward, and August Wilson speaks, primarily in the theme of transition of Black folks transitioning from property to people, and how we have come out of a history of being chattel, of being like property and a commodity to somebody else, and then, you know, finding a way to attain our own identity, attain our own personhood. Joe Turner, Seven Guitars primarily speaks of that theme, and in the overlying theme that Wilson, you know, depicts in terms of hardships. We just had his brother in the other day. He said basically they got their food off the back of the truck every day, and that's how they ate. Like, he didn't have an easy life. So he always speaks of hardships, and, you know, we have some Black playwrights out there that's like, well, damn, why we gotta talk about the hard stuff all the time? You know, why we gotta talk about back then? But it's like what you said, right? How do we understand about what we're going and what we're going for if we don't realize what we want? Property to personhood. Speak about that, and how.
Well, I think that, you know, one's kind of the idea that the given circumstance in most all the place too is that Black people are living in a society that will only let them go as far as white folks allow them to. That's like the given circumstance that each character then has to wrestle with and respond to, you know. And it's interesting how, you know, there's no like specific like white antagonist in any of these plays.
No, the whiteness is the antagonist. It's the space. It's the person. Yeah, you know, it's the oppression.
That's right.
That is the villain in all of this. It's the haunting, right? Sutter's ghost. Right. It's the insanity that Black people have endured due to being oppressed constantly,
right,
at work.
And so it's the system that defines it as property, as you said. You see what I'm saying? Because again, I don't think August Wilson would ever see them as property. We were never property, right? You know what I'm saying? The same. You know,
we saw that way.
But the system was telling us that we're property. And so then you're kind of dealing with the people that are still trying to get out or reckon with this system that is trying to tell them you are nothing but property or former property.
Right.
Even at that. But you're still not people.
Yeah.
You're still, you know what I'm saying? And much of this work is an assertion of the humanity of Black people. You know.
Yeah. And you can't find that in Eugene. You know what I'm saying? You can't find that in other places. At least from the perspective of a Black individual. Like, when I came in and I saw August for the first time, I was like, this is for me.
Right.
And nobody else. Like, I just felt like there was a spotlight in the room. It was like highlighted upon me. You know, when somebody speaks your language, like when you hear a song and it's like, oh, like they were in my head when they wrote that. Like, you know, that's how I felt when, you know, I listen to August, like, primarily now. Let's speak about your individual, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I love that. Like, for example, Pearl Cleage, I just directed a play not too long ago called Angry, Raucous, and Shamelessly Gorgeous, which I never heard of until the producer, you know, Virginia State said, will you direct this play?
Right.
And then I read it. It was a wonderful play. August, what Pearl did in the writing of that play is that she put 4 black women in a hotel suite without the white gaze, without the male gaze, without the, so we were able to be, you know, the women, the characters in that play were able to be their authentic selves. You know, so in this incredibly gorgeous, funny, poignant play, the humanity of black women, you know, because we have our own struggle to deal with about who we are, and I think August does that for black people. Like our humanity, who we are, which is, I love the fact that there's only 2 plays that there are white people in the entire 10 plays, right? And I love the representation, for example, in Ma Rainey, where they're up there in the booths. I mean, it just sets it up so, I mean, the system is so clearly delineated for you and illustrated just by that power dynamic, and then we're in the, you know, studio down, and we're doing what we do, you know, in the studio, and Ma herself speaks to how they want to dehumanize her. How they just want her voice. They want what she can do for them, right? And that they won't even buy her a Coca-Cola. You know, I mean, like that is a symbol. I mean, it's not like she could go buy her own Coca-Cola. You know, I mean, she could buy a whole, she buy everybody Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's the principle.
But August always focused on that.
Yes.
Something's always better than nothing, right? That's the principle.
I personally loved that that his plays don't have white people as the focal point.
Right.
And he does not dwell on our, in their opinion, in their mind, our lack of humanity. Or our inferiority, or whatever the system is saying. He doesn't focus on that at all.
That's right.
It's just about us and our story.
August is quoted as saying that he didn't watch a lot of plays. He didn't read a lot of plays. He didn't look to do this. He was more so a poet, and then he was like, all right, well, let me start writing these characters and these individuals. How do you feel about a person that it's kind of like that punk rock era. It's like we didn't learn to play guitar, we didn't take lessons, we just picked it up and we did it our own way. Like, I think that's a kind of revolutionary act in its own, that you're not going with the grain, that you're not, you know, doing verse, chorus, verse like everybody else has been doing. But you're just kind of like, you know, I'm doing my own thing and I'm gonna write it and I'm gonna see how it rocks. And
yeah, I mean, he didn't go to school to be a playwright. Right. You know, he didn't go to school. Yeah.
So what does that say about playwriting, right? What you know, it's really about the person and creating the character more so than it is than, you know, the spectacle or the lighting or the music or whatever. It's really just about rich characters.
There's a lot of ways into the art, you know. How one gets there. There's a lot of different paths, you know, and I think, Wilson kind of was a champion of kind of self-determination and it's a path of self-determination. But as a result of the deficiencies of a system that was not aimed at your growth and you know, kind of your ability to thrive, not serving your interests. Because again, you know, August Wilson at a young age became disillusioned with school because it wasn't serving him, it didn't believe him, and you know, he left at a very young age.
When he was talking about that now.
Right, which is, you know, where it was so bright though. It's like, wow, he's almost too intelligent. Then the system knew how to acknowledge. So then, you know, so he had to go another route, and that is a very symbolic of a lot of black people's relationship with organized education. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Bob Marley has a quote that says, "If I was educated, I'd be a damn fool." And there's an idea in black culture that we know, we wrestle with.
Right, like my teacher told me,
That's right. We say, like, and then on the flip side, some people have to, like, contest with it. I mean, if you go to school, sometimes the community, kind of like chastises you because there's this history of, well, the school is not going to celebrate your black self.
Yes.
That's right.
The institution is not here to fully, embrace you.
That's right.
It's here to make you assimilate into a culture
That's
that
right.
doesn't really see you as the individual that you truly are.
Well, actually, to assimilate, to socialize you to be a slave.
That's right, to the system.
That's right, to serve the system.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's what a lot of, kind of August Wilson's journey towards where he landed kind of reflects that kind of wrestling with that theme. It wasn't until, Lloyd Richards really kind of taught August Wilson how to write a play.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah, 3.5-hour epic productions that somebody was like, "Hey man, we can take this back a little."
But again, Clark Purdy, when I say his name, because Clark Purdy was one of his actually first people coming out of Minneapolis, and then he landed with Lloyd Richards. And I think that the relationship with Clark Purdy and Lloyd Richards in developing August's work shows the importance of the relationship with the director and the playwright.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That we don't have a lot of incubators that incubate relationships between black directors and black playwrights and help them nurture each other.
Yeah.
In their craft. We're really lacking of that in this country.
Yeah, it's really interesting how much we are discouraged to collaborate.
That's right.
And use our group ideas for the better sum of all parts.
Because of white supremacy.
Hey.
It's a very individualistic thing.
Yeah.
For
individualism.
Yes, and the way playwriting is taught is an individual. You go to your corner and you do. You write your play. In our culture, we are very collaborative people. We are very, we like the discourse. We like the conversation, the collaboration. That's not supported though. That's not supported by the system that the American theater has created. It's a system.
Yeah.
And it's a system by design.
Okay.
And it's a design system to elevate some and others.
That's even a little further, and even say capitalism.
Yes.
In terms of like the commodification of culture, the commodification of art, in a way that does not fit or serve black culture.
Selling watermelons on the back of a truck.
Well, but the symbolism, because we can say the watermelon, we can actually cut the watermelon up and split it up. It's tangible. But who owns the song? You understand what I'm saying? Who owns the play? The play is not the written word. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The play is not the written word.
There you go.
The play is the living thing that you go and see.
Yes.
So who owns the play? It's not the playwright. It's not the director. It's not the actor. It's the intersection of all of them coming and bringing it. Now that's but our system, capitalism, wants to assign it to one person. Oh well, it's the playwright. Oh, it's the director. It's the star. You know what I'm saying? And so it's really kind of struggling with
who gets the money?
Who gets the money? And there was a long history of playwrights getting done, just exploited. And I think now, sometimes it's kind of gone to the other side a little bit in terms of now playwrights often are seen as they own the thing. You know what I'm saying? When, again, it's important to give playwrights their due for sure. But again, we just challenge on trying to figure out who really owns the creative stake of the work.
It's a collaboration because it is not the play. It's the literature in play form.
That's right.
But it does not become the play until the concept, until the artistic design team, until the actors, until the director. That is what actualizes and realizes the play and the audience. I mean, because until then it's just rehearsal.
That's right.
Right, and then that's the last. That's the. And so, who owns it?
Yeah, who owns it? That's the theater company that produces it.
Yes,
See what I'm saying?
exactly.
There's all these challenges, which makes the economy of theater really weird. That's right.
I actually saw a TikTok yesterday about Black students at MIT in some hugely high level math class, and they were all failing. And the professor goes to his contemporaries and says, I can't figure this out, they're all failing. And of course the narrative that they got back was, well, they're just not smart enough to do the work. And he's like, they're at MIT.
You're right.
And what they did was they paired all of the students up in study groups.
Yes.
And within 3 weeks, every single one of those Black students made it.
That's right.
Because they were trying to study alone, they needed the collaboration.
That's right. All of my classes are taught in cohorts. They study together, that cohort gets the same grade. So everybody's invested in helping each other with whatever the assignment or the presentation or whatever it is. I mean, theater is the most collaborative thing that there is.
Yeah, that's right.
It really is.
You can't do it no
No. It's about that community and collaboration. And, I always go, unhealthy artists create unhealthy art. Unhealthy collaboration also. When you're not collaborating, where you know it's supposed to be collaborative, but it's not. Right? Where it's much more dictatorial and stratified. And I'm the buck, and do this, and I don't want that, and whatever. It doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't produce the type of theater, the level of theater. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you get something.
You get
but what is it?
Yeah. You came here for a C, that's cool. I came here for an A.
Exactly. I tell people, if you want to be mediocre, let me know. And I'll let you. I'll let you. If you want to be mediocre, that's not my game. I don't play that game. I'm always trying to, and I'm never satisfied, so just so you know. But if you, it's cool. I will let you be that. But I'm not going to invite you into the collaboration of an artistic work that I'm creating if you just want to be mediocre. You just want to get by. No, let's do something together. Let's strive.
And with that, you were talking about self-determination. And, I think about Wilson's themes about that and responsibility, and of course, the fatherhood speech and fences.
Legacy.
But it definitely reminds me of the principles of the Black Panther Party coming up in the 60s and 70s, and I would be remiss to think that the two are not, connected, if not intertwined.
August Wilson was very much a product of those times, of those principles, product of the Black Arts movement from the 60s, and then the Black Power movement of the late 60s, and even into the Nation of Islam. He spent time there in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was very much influenced by. So I think it feels to me like a big kind of push in his work is to shine a light on those instincts within Black people to do for self. It kind of countering these narratives of Black people are lazy, or Black people, they just need to pull themselves up, or they're not smart enough, or they're not, they're all. None of his plays have anybody who's shiftless.
Nope.
Everybody try. Everybody is trying hard. Doing stuff. They might not be working, but they trying. Even like Jeremy and Joe Turner's coming on. He's going to the club every night trying to play his guitar. But typically, a character like that would be seen as a shiftless, just want to party all the time type character. But he's actively trying to find and make a way in the world.
Yeah.
Or like Lions, expensive.
Yeah.
You know, where, I mean, Troy actually says, well, you need to do this, you need to do this. Dad, I don't do it like you.
That's right.
This is how I do it, right? And can you, I'm not asking you to give me something, you just loan me this and I'll give you back.
Right.
After
That's right.
Troy not thinking, not valuing that his artistic work is work.
That's right. It's just revealing like how hard working. He says it, right? Holloway says, niggas is the hardest working people on earth. Now you got to pay them, now they're lazy.
The lines in all these plays they're just it.
But it's funny about Lions, and he also speaks about ambition a lot, right? Corey wants to be a football player, but Troy won't let him, or Troy doesn't think he can do it because Troy didn't succeed in his baseball playing. Same thing with Lions. Oh, you're not going to make it out there. This, that, and third. Like, it's interesting how August will juxtapose that. Will show how our own, jadedness from the system inhibits the next generation and causes this cycle of stagnancy and us being in a place where we don't feel whole or we can feel like we can rise out of what we are in.
To the point where we then inflict harm on each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's right. Hurt people. I mean, you can even see like how Memphis treats Rissa in the diner. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's doing for himself, but he's also constantly cutting, and she runs the whole place.
Yeah.
she runs the whole place. And so just kind of those relations, how Troy hurts Lions, how we hurt each other because of the things
that we are hurt by.
That's right.
Building up the fences.
I always say, like with education, for example. I mean, our parents, my parents, my grandparents, and, throughout, were traumatized by the educational system.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just having a conversation about what white supremacy did to indigenous people and how it took their children, and then it chopped their hair off, and then it told them they had to worship in Christianity. It took away their language and tried to, I mean, that is trauma. So, I mean, that is passed on, generationally. And the same thing, like when I was teaching in I did some work in high schools and public schools and tried to bring arts programming, to help, because I believe in the power of the art. I believe that art is transformational.
Absolutely.
And that our kids need it to be fully formed human beings. So, but the idea that people that they're problem kids or something, and then that they're coming from a home where their parents also did not have a good experience in the educational system, and maybe their parents before them. So we're dealing with this legacy of that. So it's not just you and you're not listening in class and you're not no, it's more than that. And I can't get any support from the parents. I never blamed the parents. I was like, I know they had a problem with school too, because I had a problem with school, and I had I know what it does to you, when they're trying to basically program you. My dad I used to have this discussion with my dad. He used to say, the goal of American education is to generate an undereducated populace, so that then they can have control over that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't get that until I got it. Do you know what I mean? But I'm glad my dad knew it, because then he helped me facilitate the agency of my own education. So, I mean, that's what the system is trying to do.
No, I remember my daughter being mad at me and herself because she was getting straight A's and getting teased about it by other black children.
Yep.
You know, and what do you say in that instance? Like, you know, there's no way to fix that for them, right? But what I ended up telling her was, you need to worry about you, right? You're getting these, this is your job. At this point in your life, this is your job. You're doing your job to the best of your ability, and that's all you need to worry about.
Yeah.
Let them run their mouth. They're going to say what they're going to say.
Right.
I can remember, because I'm a retired classroom teacher, being in a classroom where, let's say there's a new student who comes in, and the school was predominantly black. And this student comes from another black community. This child would always have his hand up, would stand to answer a question, and spoke very well. And then he would be chastised by other kids in the classroom. First of all, he was a newcomer, he spoke, you know, with a dialect, etc. So they wanted to, you know, keep him separate anyway. And then he seems to be Mr. Smarty Pants, because that was for little kids, and this is middle school. The way they received him. And say, you know, those bones and what have you. And I used to say to the class, I said, you know, well, not maybe the whole class, but some of the kids who were giving me fever, I told them, you need to stop, because one day you may need a dentist or a doctor. You walk in, and it's not really the person that you have to depend on. You say, you know, I remember when. You know,
Sit right down, sir. I'll get that trail in just a minute.
I think to bring us back to the Wilson, you know, I think the issue then is like, do you work within the system, or do you tear the system down and rebuild the system? I think it's kind of it is also at the heart of what some of his characters are wrestling with. You know what I'm saying? Do you break the window and go take the ham, or do you just ask the man for the ham every day, persistently, and try and get it? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that is the dilemma.
That's right.
You know, but the man is not going to give, this is the thing that we are understanding. The man is not going to give you the ham.
That's right.
He's going to give you the chicken.
That's right.
You know, not going to give you the ham.
So what do you do?
So what do you do?
Do you take the chicken?
Or do you settle?
Do you, right?
Settle for
That's
the chicken.
right.
Or do you still go after the ham?
And then, you know, in August, that's what he always said, what 2 Chainz is about, is ham bone. That's the heart.
I love that.
That's the heart, and then, you know, people are going to tell me, what's the plot? Ham bone is the center of the play. Because that issue, that idea of what are you going to do when they offer you the chicken? What are you going to do? That's what he's asking the audience. You're going to take the chicken, you're going to keep asking for it, you're going to do like Sherman and break the window and go take and then go to jail. You know?
That's the dilemma.
Yeah. And there's no beat you across the head message with Wilson, right? He kind of leaves the door open. He kind of lets you decide, where the resolution of the conflict lies. There's no real fuzzy feeling when you walk out of a August Wilson play, but you end up thinking about a lot.
Because August Wilson's play comes out of the black aesthetic, comes out of the African continuum, which is what are you going to do with the questions with which the story leaves? What are you going to do?
Right.
Not that we all. No. Because that is not how we tell stories.
Right. Yeah.
That's not how we tell stories.
Right. Yeah. Because that's not a story being told.
I mean, this whole sort of discourse around the chicken or the ham and what do you want to do. I mean, in a larger sense, August had that struggle with the American theater. Like, you know, the whole debate that he had with, I think Brustein, Robert Brustein, a white, you know, journalist, critic, theater maker, where, you know, he said to August, why don't you just, you know, if you're so concerned about black theater and the black community, why don't you just put your plays, you know, let black theater companies do it. Like, don't let the Seattle Rep do it. Like, give it to, you know, that whole thing, the chicken or the ham, the chicken or the ham, you know, in a larger sense. You know, when he's challenging, you know, talking about who gets the money, because it is about capitalism. Who gets the money? Who gets the ability to produce all of these plays, works? You know, so that it becomes the play and not just the literature.
Right.
Yeah. I also read that he finagled and he litigated deals to the degree that he had creative control that Mamet didn't have, and like a lot of his like white contemporaries coming up in the theater at the time, like he wanted control to a certain extent. I mean, you know, you can cast it, you can do whatever, but when it comes to my words, like...
Yeah, well, there were certain things that, you know, he was very, you know, kind of staunch about, like the idea of having a black director, the importance of having a black director for his plays on Broadway. And for the movie, Fences wasn't made during his lifetime because he could never get the studios to agree to a black director that would direct Fences, you know.
They wanted to give it to Jonathan Demme. The studio, you know, like whether it was Paramount or whoever, all those studios. And August said, thank God.
Like Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Barry Levinson.
Yes.
And Norm Jewison.
The close-ups in that Fences.
Big names. Again, capitalism.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
It's unselling. Yeah. You're gonna get as much money for this thing.
Yes.
You know, but they just see it as a thing, right? It's not a revered like story that we hold it. Yeah, so I am what else I got here? Yeah, we talk a lot about he talks about like we talked about the overlying like whiteness as a structure, you know, Ma Rainey particularly, musicians, and we were talking about control, you know, black musicians that deal with their white bosses, struggle for power in urban life. He was really focused on just making sure that black people got credit for the art that they designed, because so much of it is usurped and assimilated by white culture, and I think he was really protective of that. And I think that in that, he caused a revolution of black playwrights to not settle, to not just put their stuff in the Shilton circuit. Like, we're going to make this national, you know. Everybody needs to see this. Everybody needs to know about our stories. So that's where I just kind of come full circle to where, like, I feel like that he's opened so many doors for so many people in so many places, and
We got work. We've been working. You know,
A whole generation of actors, a whole generation of directors, a whole generation of designers got work because of August Wilson's Century Cycle. You know?
Sam Jackson, Charles Dutton.
Literally, I'm thinking like Stephen McKinley Henderson, Anthony Chisholm, names we don't quite know about, but who literally spent most of their career doing August Wilson things, you know? It has work.
work. I mean, and work that knew your value. Like, I'm not just talking about work, because we always work. We always working, but do you get paid for your work?
Right.
You know, and August did open, I mean, he opened channels of that, not only for black directors and actors, but also other artisans.
Right.
Designers, costumes, lighting. Yes.
In the same way that Spike Lee did for film,
Yes.
because Spike Lee started
Yes.
a lot of careers, and then they were all at the same time. What August was doing it on stage, Spike was doing it on film.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What character do you believe is the revolutionary in the cycle?
I mean, I feel like at one level it hinges on like how you define revolution, because I feel like his work really exemplifies these two traditions in Black revolutionary thought. And it is kind of the Booker T. Washington
Right.
or W.B. Du Bois
Right.
model. You know what I'm
And
saying?
they're both present.
That's right. They're both
present.
Yes. And they're both flawed.
And they're both flawed. They're both and.
That's right.
It's not an either or.
That's what it gets you there. Right. And so it kind of ultimately reveals how they both rely on each other.
Yes.
Too, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
On how Seth and Joe Turner relies on the philosophical and spiritual power of Bynum as well. So Seth is making the pots with the metal, and Bynum is calling on gods. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of has these complementary forces, I think, a lot of times in his plays.
I know ultimately, W.E.B. Du Bois is an expatriate. I mean, he left, he said, okay, it's not gonna happen, I'm leaving, and he went over to Ghana, in West Africa, and the W.E.B. Du Bois Center is in Accra.
Yeah.
Is in Accra, not in the United States. So, he said, I'll leave that to y'all.
Yeah.
But that's also that's a trend with Black artists. I mean, James Baldwin left. But he came back, and a lot of them did come back, but it's almost like they had to leave in order to fully realize, right? Because Miles Davis left. Nina Simone left. Like and they were all in that revolutionary cohort.
Yes.
Right?
The liberty.
Like I say, so you have all these different colors of revolutionary activity in the plays, and it was a revolutionary act of Sterling to break the glass and go get the hand.
That was a revolution.
You know what I'm saying? Of a young man who doesn't have much else other than the strength of his will and his character. You have the revolution of Boy Willie who's trying to sell the piano to get some land. Then you have the revolutionary act of his sister Bernice who says, no, I'm gonna play the piano and teach. The music pass from the coast. That's a revolutionary act. You have a revolutionary act of mom who's like, no, you give me a Coca-Cola. I'm not going. It says you give me a Coca-Cola, which is a revolutionary act. So you have all these different colors. That's right.
And again, like the questions and the situations, and they'll just put you up in front of you, and it's like, okay. This is what it is. These are life acts, like free will at its best. I do wanted to kind of not close out, but kind of start wrapping things up. But Wilson says you start thinking something's wrong with black when white people say I don't see color. What they're saying is you're affected by this undesirable condition. But I'll pretend I don't see that, and I go, no, see my color, look at me. I'm not ashamed of who I am and what I am. So frontal blackness at all times.
That's an articulation of Zora Neale Hurston. I am not tragically colored.
There you go.
I don't look on the world and weep. That's what Zora Neale Hurston said. You know what I'm saying? This idea of celebrating, realizing my strength comes from my blackness. It doesn't make me more or less, it makes me me.
And here's
That's right.
Do you think that August intentionally wrote plays to emphasize that, to call people of his color into these mainstream spaces and be like, no, we belong. We belong beside these people, not behind, not in some like rat-infested theater. We belong with these people at this time, at this age.
But I think, kind of what Dr. Chi was suggesting, it's not comparative. It's not even like we belong to, we're as good as these people. He doesn't, it's not. It's just, we are beautiful.
Period.
That's the, you know what I'm saying? It's a classic, black is beautiful.
Yes.
We don't have to compare it to nothing else.
Right.
We can just sing it loud and say, I'm black and I'm proud, And that these invitation to recognize our greatness, period. You know what I'm saying? Not in reaction to, not in response, just loving yourself.
I don't know if you've ever listened to the debate between Brucey and Wilson, but some of the stuff that August says in there in response to some of the things that Brucey is saying, is just so brilliant. It exemplifies what Justin is articulating here. When Brucey says something about, I don't go around saying I'm Irish American. I don't go around saying, I don't bring light to my Irishness. And Wilson just goes, well, that's on you.
Yeah.
You don't want to recognize that, that's on you.
Right.
But I'm African.
Right.
So I'm going to relate to African, because that's who I am, that's where I come from, that's my legacy, and that's my lineage.
Right.
So however you want to do you do you. But, and I'm not, he plainly was not comparing himself or anything. He was like, you do what you're going to do, but this is me.
That's right.
This is what I do.
Yeah. And I apologize for that delineation, but I do feel that there is a notion of comparability, because we do that with Shakespeare. We do that with our white contemporaries that we share the space with. So yeah, I always, and I feel like that should be the overlying theme. Like, I shouldn't have to compare myself to you. I should love myself for who I am. However, we do live in a structure that puts one over the other. And how do we reach full equity, without, just
Utilizing that.
Yeah.
Utilizing that comparison.
You break the glass and take the hand. No. I'm there. But you mentioned Shakespeare in that thought. So I just, can you just say a little bit more about that? Like, we do it with Shakespeare. What do you?
I guess I don't take out the we. I do it with Shakespeare. I consider Wilson to be the Black Shakespeare. He speaks his characters speak in a way that is different than I've heard any other people, from Black people in my generation that I've heard speak. So it takes me it's a certain different way of ingesting the language. And I do the same thing with Shakespeare, that I have to ingest the language a different way. With Shakespeare, it's hard because I've never heard this stuff before. But with Wilson, I've heard it, I understand it, but I have to ingest it and expel it in a different way. That feels more natural to me, however, in a way that I have to make natural.
But I think that's what audiences tend to do. Like, August Wilson, I'm almost certain, did not consider himself a Black Shakespeare.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
August Wilson felt like, I'm August Wilson.
Right.
I'm doing the best August Wilson I can. And audiences tend to do, you know what I'm saying? And that's people say, well, who's the next Michael Jordan? You know what I'm saying? Because we tend to like want to see all the great people. Who's it? Is Mike Tyson next to Muhammad Ali?
Yeah.
Mike Tyson fights nothing like Muhammad Ali. We're always kind of looking for that's for the audience, but those boxers, those greats, they don't think they get to that greatness by not thinking of that way. You know what I'm saying? But also letting the audience have those comparisons. Because they also can't control whether they're saying it's Black Shakespeare.
So I think the deeper question then becomes is, how far do we push as Black artists to be in white spaces? Like, how far do we push to get in that room, knowing that those comparisons are going to be made, and it's going to make what we do in that room difficult on several levels.
That part.
How hard do we push to be in those rooms, or do we say, you know what, I'm not bothered with you, I'm gonna go ahead and create my own?
Or do we push? I think it's like go where your heart tells you to go, and wherever you go, claim the ground on which you stand. You know what I'm saying? Because people are going to be inclined to go, and some people who want to go into opera, you know what I'm saying? But am I all right to sing opera? If you feel inclined to sing opera, and bring all of your Black self to it. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to getting into saying, well, no, you shouldn't sing opera, you should sing gospel, because that's what Black people sing when we want to sing. No, you know what I'm saying? There's no prescription on what Black people can and can't do. And Black people have a right to claim all of it. All of it. You know what I'm saying? So if you get in the quote-unquote right space, now you, as one professor used to tell me, no matter what you do, blacking it up. Black it up. You know what I'm saying? And so you claim that right to black up the space. You know what I'm saying?
I think of sometimes ways that they try to damage August's character. They speak about his temper. They speak about moments of rage. However, there's never a moment where I've heard where he's come out of a performance of his where he saw it and he was enraged by it. Because like you said, he can't control it, right? Once it comes into the hands of the collaborators, like all you can do is just kind of like hold your hands up and like pray for the best. And we had his brother here, and he just kind of said like, we walked out of the theater and we kind of held our hands up, and that's what it was. And I think that's really remarkable for just any individual that gives away their art, because I as an artist, as a writer, it's my baby. I want to hold it and cherish it, and I really don't want anybody doing anything to it where my intent was not intended.
But I also think that in some instances, maybe all, you write what you write, and whoever picks it up puts their lens on top of it, and someone else puts their lens on top of it. And 99% of the time, what is created is so far beyond what you sitting at your desk in front of your computer even imagined.
And that's the beauty of art.
And that's the gorgeous part of it, right? And it's always going to have the downside of, I wouldn't have done that. But at that point, it's not yours anymore.
And you're not doing it.
And you're not doing it.
You put it out there, and you put it out there. It then is a piece of art. It's like, you can't control a sculptor or a painter cannot control how people perceive what they have created.
Exactly.
Now, yes, they have to have an intent. They have to have a reason and why they made this and a story behind it and all that. But they certainly can't control when I come in and look at it, right? What I see and what story I make, and how they can't. That's the nature of art.
That brings me to a question, because you're comparing a play and a performance to a piece of sculpture or a painting. Once that sculpture or that painting is completed, it's fixed. all a person can do is come and interpret it, but they can't change it. But a playwright can, whatever the intent that's going on inside that writer, they want to say something and they want to put something out there. They have a message, a purpose, and so they write it and then they turn it over to a director, the person who sets the scene, all these people, all these collaborators that come together. And then if the ultimate message or parts of it go against what the author's intention was, what does that do to the author?
Well, the thing is though, it's still just play I wrote. Yeah. Do you understand? The play is still the play I wrote. That is fixed. You can't change that. And if you do, I can sue you. But it's about so the interpretation is different. It's the same kind of thing. How Justin interprets a play, like I give him my play, and how he might come up with stuff that I did not perceive of, or it wasn't within the intent that I was, however, that's what he is getting, that's how he is interpreting it. And I have to know, this is my play, those words that I wrote are still there, and this is a person who's interpreting it differently than I intended. But there's nothing I can do about that.
I think you just said it. You said, oh gosh, sorry, I'm having a seat.
That's okay, it's okay.
That the writer wrote it, this is my intent, but now I am giving it to you, and what you make of it is what you make of it. And I don't have anything to say about that unless you go in total opposition to my message. Then, and there's some checks and balances there, but then I can sue you.
You gotta let the baby walk into the world.
So you know that.
So the playwright gives birth to the literary art form that is the script.
The script, yes.
And then you gotta let the baby walk into the world so it can become the play.
You're in trouble.
Otherwise it just stays words on a page.
But again, though, there's no easy answer to this question, though. You see what I'm saying? Because again, artistically, there's a lot, like, what is the artistic responsibility of the director and the company to the playwright and the script? That's a big question. You know,
like the automatic response I have is like, well, what if some crazy white director wants to come in and put a whole bunch of white guys in?
Exactly. That's right. It's the same thing. The Irish version of Fences.
Right.
Let's do a white version of Raisin in the Sun.
But how do you feel about that language being used?
Which language? Like the thought, that inclination?
Well, Wilson's language used by non-people of color.
Well, I feel like at one level that he kind of does that intentionally, because to stake a cultural claim to the language, to the you know what I'm saying? And so I think just one from practice, it would be hard to find a company of white actors who would be willing to try to put that language in their mouth.
Without just being inherently disrespectful.
But a play that's not so racially, kind of entrenched with language-wise, there might be some versions. Again, how do I feel about it? I personally don't. I don't think it should be done, and I can tell you reasons on why. But I'm also, me as an artist, I don't challenge people's right to do their art. My artist is at one level. If you're gonna try it and you create the means to do it, I'm not going to support it, and I might speak against it, but I'm not going to challenge your right to do your art. That's just kind of how I feel in general. I might speak against it, but I'm not going to intrinsically say, I'm going to say why you should.
He, in that debate between him and Brustein, he brings up an example of people and I don't know, maybe it might not be in that debate, it might be in something else I read, of him having a conversation with somebody, but he brings up an example of a company in Taiwan wanting to do fences or play. It's like, okay, so if if the artist wants their work like, that company can't bring in people to do it. Number one, they don't speak Taiwanese. It's got to be in Taiwanese. It's got to be, translated so that the masses of people can understand it. So then the Taiwanese actors have to play those roles, right? But that is a special circumstance. There are no black people that can do it. There are none. And this company wants to do this play. So, that's a special circumstance answer. I would want them to do it. I would want them to hear the story. I would want them to experience the brilliance of August Wilson and his language and the story.
And it gets into me kind of setting up my later workshop this afternoon with Black Aesthetic in classical theater and Shakespeare. The question though that wrestle with in terms of, okay, so a Taiwanese cast is going to do fences, one thing they have to grapple with is, are we saying this is Taiwanese culture? Are they Taiwanese?
Yes.
Or are they black people, Taiwanese actors playing black people? That's two different ways into the work, and it's not about good or bad, right or wrong, but you gotta be clear, what you're doing the same play. And so often when we get colorblind stuff, there's not an agreement on, how are we saying race is functioning in this world? You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes actors are just kind of left to figure it out, while oftentimes white directors are kind of relying on a universal idea that is couched in whiteness.
In my black theater class, I teach at a predominantly white institution, and so there's a lot of white students, and we're doing the century cycle. I do a whole 3 days on the N-word. Because August Wilson, So I do a whole 3 days on the N-word, and then we come up with a standard of community agreement. Because number one, that's not a word I use in my general vernacular. I recognize it as part of our vernacular as a culture. It's just not one of my, it's not a word I use. But I don't begrudge anyone else for how they use the word. But I don't want particularly black students, I want none of them traumatized in the class. Because there's enough trauma. Right. And I also don't want to traumatize white students either. But, so we made an agreement. Right, and every class is different, because I don't just come in and tell them this is the agreement. I want them to come up with community standards and practices and sets of agreements. And usually it comes down to none of the white students want to say the word, right? And I don't want to hear N-word. I want to hear August Wilson. I want to hear the language and the rhythm and the syntax. And so what they'll do is, if they have to read a scene, they'll say this scene is between Becker and Booster, and the N-word is in it. So Booster doesn't say it, but Becker does. So we need a black actor to read this. So a white actor can read the other character, because I do want the white actors also to get the feeling of saying these words, because I want these white students to understand the sacrifice, for example, that their black peers have made in studying at this predominantly white institution, and how does it feel when they have to always put white language in their mouth? Yes. And so when they're grappling with this, they're thinking, it's a teaching lesson on many levels.
That's really cool.
On many levels. It's very powerful.
That's a revolution.
It's very powerful for these white kids. They're like, oh.
And we all need to realize that. And once we get over this, and we got
to have they ever agreed that, I'll say it.
There have been white students who said, don't say it because it's fun.
I can't wait for that.
But then no.
Right, because the class.
That's right.
I want to hear you say it.
That's right. So because it is a community decision.
Yeah.
One person does not.
You can decide.
No,
You don't get to,
no. So even if one person said, like, say all the black students in the class said, you know, I don't care, you know, it's okay, I don't care.
Right.
It's acting, whatever. And, but one black student says, no. It's like, no then.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's no.
Yeah.
Because we are not gonna re-traumatize someone.
No.
Right.
You know, for what?
Yeah.
When we can find an alternative.
Right.
When we can still do the play, still speak the language, and find alternative ways.
And I think that, in wrapping all of this up, that August Wilson was primarily about healing, right? Just coming in, just developing a place where you can come in, hear about your struggles and your traumas, but overall be healed by that communion and by everybody sharing and laughing and, you know, ooh, because I'm sure it was a party when you went to see Wilson back in the day, like even now. So,
Well, you would say, when we did, sorry for
no.
cutting off, but
I just want to say, I think he creates a space of safety.
well, because at the heart of this century cycle is the most revolutionary character who is a healer. Who is
Yes. Aunt Esther. Aunt Esther.
right? And she had the revolutionary act of healing black people, black children. You know what I'm saying?
Human cleansing binding.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's a perfect place to.
All right. Well, I hope that y'all been come back to us at 4 o'clock. We'll be doing the last episode of Mr. Justin Mecca. Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.